for Chapter 11, and I'm actually going to video myself working the problems. This is for two reasons. I feel like I can teach it better if you can actually see me, and also it's easier for me to video it this way. So what we're going to do is we're going to learn how to simplify rational expressions, and we are going to factor and then cancel common factors. That's pretty much everything we're going to do. I hope you can remember how to factor from Chapter 8. So let me show you how to factor and cancel common factors. If you'll look at the bottom here, the top you cannot factor, but the bottom, they have a GCF and it's 5. So you're going to factor out of 5. Left up top you've got x minus 1, and in the bottom if you factor out of 5, you're left with x minus 1, not 5, because 5 divided by 5 is 1. Now you have common factors. If you imagine that x minus 1 in the top is in parentheses, now they'll cancel, and you're left with 1, not 0, but 1 over 5. And that's your answer. Also, you have to answer the question, what are any excluded values, if there are any? So to answer that question, you're going to, really what you're asking yourself is, what value for x would make the bottom 0, because you can't have 0 in the bottom of a fraction, so that would be an excluded value. So if I look at 5x minus 5, and I need to figure out what would make it 0, I'm just going to set it equal to 0. So if you add 5, you get 5x equals 5, and then x cannot be 1. If x equals 1, then this is going to be 0, which is impossible. So x cannot be 1 states our excluded value. So my whole answer is 1/5, and x cannot be 1. All right, example 2. There is no factoring to be done. I just wanted to show you an easy example of simplifying rationals. So if you cancel what you can, 7 will go into 7 and 21, and it'll go to 7 one time and 21 3 times. And then the a, there's an a up top and an a in the bottom, so what you're going to do is cancel these two a's with 2 of these, and you're left with 1. So that leaves you with 3 up top and a in the bottom. Also, your excluded value here is that the bottom, a, cannot be 0, because you're multiplying, so you can't multiply by 0 or you'll get 0. So a cannot be 0. That's your excluded value. It's the value the variable cannot be. All right, it gets a little harder. For example 3, we still want to factor. So we are going to factor the top. When there's 2 terms, you're probably going to look for a GCF. And in this case, we've got a 3 and a 6, so that's going to be a 3. And you're left with x minus 2. 6 divided by 3 is 2. Down here in the bottom, I've got a quadratic trinomial. So most of the time in those cases, you're going to do the 2 sets of parentheses. This number, what multiplies to get x squared? X and x. And then you've got to figure out what multiplies to get the last number and adds to get the middle. So since you have a negative back here, they're going to be different signs. Since the middle number is positive, the bigger number is positive. So the different signs mean you're going to subtract. 3 times 2 is what works here, and since the middle number is positive, the bigger number is positive. Now you have 2 common factors in the top and the bottom, so they'll cancel, and you're left with 3 over x plus 3. And x cannot be, well, what can x not be? Now, this is going to be a little bit trickier for you, but if you'll look over here where you have factored, I'm multiplying 2 things. For this ever to be 0, one of these 2 things has to be 0. That's the only way to multiply 2 things and get 0. So you'll ask yourself, what can I do to make this 0, and what can I do to make this 0? It's called the zero product property. This is going to be x can't be negative 3 here, because negative 3 plus 3 is 0. And here x can't be 2. So it's going to be negative 3 or 2. So there's 2 excluded values there. Okay, so they're going to get a little bit harder. For example 4, we've got 2 quadratic trinomials that we want to factor. So we are going to, up top, we're going to take it a step at a time. Do the top first, then the bottom, and then cancel. So top first, parentheses, parentheses. C times C gives me the C squared. What numbers, this is negative, so they're going to be different. What numbers are going to multiply to give me 6, but subtract, because they're different, to give me 1. That's going to be 3 and 2 again. And since the middle number is negative, the bigger number is negative. Down here on the bottom, we're going to do 2 sets of parentheses. What numbers, since there's plus plus, it's going to be plus plus. So what numbers multiply to give you 6, but add to give you 5? That's going to be 3 and 2. So I see common factors here and here. These are close, but they're not the same, and they're not opposite factors, which you'll see down here. So it's just going to be C minus 3 over C plus 3. And to find the excluded values, you want to go back here and look. You cannot really see it here, but you can see it better here. In this, I would need this set of parentheses to be 0, which C would have to be negative 3 there. So that tells me that C cannot be negative 3. And here, C would have to be negative 2. So it cannot be negative 2. All right, in example 5, you're going to do the same thing, but at the end, you're going to see something a little different. So if you're going to factor example 5, up top, I have the difference of 2 perfect squares. So to factor that, you're going to do 2 sets of parentheses. You put the square root of the front in the front, and the square root of the back in the back. And then you do your signs opposite. So we're going to do plus x minus x. Down here in the bottom, I don't have a difference of 2 squares, and I don't have a quadratic trinomial. So I'm going to have to look for a GCF. 7 will go into 14, so it's going to be 7. And after I factor it out, I get x minus 2. So if you look there, it looks like we don't have any same factors to cancel. But if you look real close, these here, these are called opposite factors. So what you do when they're so close but not quite is you're going to factor out a negative 1. So I'm going to take a negative 1 out here, and that's going to change the signs in here. So I took a negative 1 out of this one. So now I've got negative 2, negative 2, positive x, so they are the same. And my answer is going to be, let's put the negative 1 back in here so it's more simplified. And I get negative 2 minus x over 7, which you could also write as negative x minus 2 over 7. So my answer is going to be negative x minus 2 over 7, where x cannot equal 2, because if I put 2 in there, I'd get 0 on the bottom.
Okay, so now you've got 3 guided questions. I want you to answer those on a sheet of paper, and then in a minute, or pause the video because in a minute I'm going to put the correct answers up there. So there are the right answers. There's no need to bring that paper into me tomorrow because remember you're going to have a homework quiz for chapter 11. I'm not going to grade the guided questions. You're going to take a quiz to see how well you understood this stuff. So if you don't understand it, you definitely need to go back and watch the video again.